Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Avorion episode 69. I'm Enigmius, and today the Chariot is finally done. It took a little while since the last episode to get things taken care of, and there's not a lot of visual progress necessarily attached to what we've done since the last episode. However, there's a lot of tweaks and changes and adjustments that were made to the interior of the ship to reflect the requirements of the equipment in order to try and get the most out of this whole idea of a carrier and get as much use out of it as a carrier as possible. That having been said, the ship is also much larger than it was the last time you saw it. It's basically double the size in every direction, and consequently, a lot of the numbers are just absolutely ludicrous, and some of them are actually not very good at all. It's just the way that it sort of worked out. I realized in order to make this whole thing sort of work, we needed a certain amount of assembly capacity so that we can make fighters on the fly to replace the ones that get destroyed, which is a kind of an inevitability. We have to kind of plan for that fighters are going to be destroyed. We also have to be able to carry enough crew in terms of pilots to be able to crew the fighters if the pilots that we have get killed, etc. So there was a lot of space on the interior that had to be used up for assembly. In fact, we had so much crew capacity that I was able to get rid of most of it and use that space instead for assembly, but it was still too slow. When I first started working on the ship with the assembly capacity that we had, when I said it was done, okay, we're going to test it, it would take 12 hours of real time to build one fighter. Now it's down to a little over 2 minutes for an Augenite fighter, a very good Augenite fighter, and that to me is pretty reasonable in the grand scheme of things. So the major changes since the last episode, aside from the size and the modification of the interior to fit as much assembly space as possible, is down here with the hangars. And after doing a little bit of reading, trying to get a feel for how everything was supposed to work, there was a point made that you're better off having multiple small hangars than one large hangar, because you can only launch so many fighters from a hangar within a certain period of time. So by having more smaller hangars, you can launch your fighters faster, which is definitely a bonus when you've got a ship of this size that is not maneuverable at all anymore. If it was in the past, it's not anymore. Get those fighters out there doing what they're supposed to be doing and get them back when you're ready to move on. So you can see, instead of one great big hangar, we've got 16 smaller hangars, which makes quite a big difference in terms of getting things happening. Other than that, there's a lot of detail that went into various different stages, and I realized as I was working on it that the detailing that I was adding was very much in line with what I had in mind. I really liked the way that it was going. The temptation was to just kind of cover the entire ship in this sort of detailing theme. And then I remembered people have to be able to put turrets on this thing. The ship itself is large enough to support the maximum allowable systems, which is 15 total systems, which means the potential for many, many turrets, if that's the kind of thing that you want, whether it's to have point defense turrets, or whether you just want this to be a very offensively capable ship in addition to the hangars. Whatever it is you want this ship to be able to do, there's enough systems to support it, and that could lead to wanting a lot of space for turrets. So I kind of curtailed my enthusiasm a little bit so that we've got some detail, we've got some lighting going on that kind of draws attention to that detailing, but we've also got a lot of space on the ship that is very available for placing turrets in a variety of different locations. Point defense shouldn't be an issue with this ship. You should be able to get point defense turrets in all the key locations so that you don't have to reorient the ship in order to be able to shoot down incoming torpedoes, enemy fighters, whatever it is that you happen to encounter. So there's that element to it as well. Realistically speaking, I'm very, very happy with the way the ship turned out. I like the way it looks. The performance is in line with what I would expect from a carrier, and it was a fun build for the most part, and it kind of sets the stage for the subsequent ships that we'll be building, that will be working in a fleet situation with the carrier, that will be starting the next episode. But before we get carried away talking about other episodes and other ships, we'll get out of build mode here so you can see how it's very slow. It's an Augenite carrier. When I was building it, I was sort of expecting it to be a very slow, sort of ponderous kind of ship, not particularly maneuverable. And the way that it worked out at one point in the build is it was actually not too bad. I actually showed some footage of it maneuvering around. And for a big, fat, heavy carrier, it was not too bad. But as soon as we increased the size without adjusting any of the other thrusters or engines or anything like that, this is what we ended up with. It's now much more in line with what I would expect to see from a carrier. It's just kind of big and ponderous and heavy. It has a reasonable speed, top speed. Once you get it going, the acceleration is not fantastic, but you can see at the top we're up to 500 meters per second. We're still accelerating. And when we let off the juice, so to speak, the braking is actually very reasonable too. There's nothing worse than trying to stop a ship and you just drift into the thing that you didn't want to drift into because the braking was not very good. So if it's going to be slow to accelerate, but with a good top speed, it's also very important to have it able to slow down, to decelerate at a reasonable rate so that you're not colliding with things unless you really blow it. And in that case, it's your fault. Anyways, so that was kind of a key detail. And we can see here, if we won't start because you don't have enough pilots for all of them. That's right. We don't have enough pilots. There's our fighters that just sort of took off. And there's 3 of them because that's all I had. Basically what happened is I went to the shipyard, or the fighter production factory, this guy over here, and I bought enough fighters for a squad, and then I expanded the number of squads to the maximum allowable. And as a result, I had to use up all my fighters, or most of the fighters, as blueprints so that we would be able to make more fighters. And we can see here some of the key details, but looking at the hangar, we're very close to having these fighters complete. And now it's showing 12 minutes. It was showing 2 minutes previously, but still, it's not bad. It's at the upper limits of completion. 12 minutes, 27 seconds. There may have been a glitch with the rescaling. I'm still not too concerned about it. You can have up to 4 fighters being produced at a time. That's the maximum allowable. So let's call it, for the sake of argument, 15 minutes to build a fighter. You can build 4 at a time. It'll take a little while to populate all of the squadrons, but it'll happen. And then we can basically launch them all at the same time, launch them very, very quickly. And when the time comes, we can recover them fairly quickly because we've got the hangar split up into 16 different pieces. They look so tiny. They're like little mosquitoes flying around the carrier, which is kind of what I would have expected in the grand scheme of things. There's one there, in case you're having a hard time seeing them. And then there's another one there. And I said to come back. Oh, no, I said to collect. They should be flying back in now. So the thought occurred to me that now that we've got a carrier and we can actually build the fighters that we make, it might make sense to actually make some fighters. Maybe we'll work on that kind of in between things. But I want to carry on with the ships that we're going to be using in the fleet. The next one will be not quite so large as this one, but it should be faster, a little bit more maneuverable, and intended for sort of a frontline, heavy-duty sort of combat role. And that will be sort of the... If you have a carrier and you find yourself in a situation where fighters are maybe not doing the best job, you kind of want to go the other way. You go from small, maneuverable, and relatively light firepower to big, beefy, and heavy firepower, with the downside being all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So we're trying to balance things out and create a fleet that's actually functional and not just something that's fun to look at, because frankly, I still find this design to be fun to look at. It's just the nature of the beast. So the blueprint is in the information box. The link for the blueprint is in the information box below the video. You can try it out, see what works for you. It's not going to have necessarily all of the photos and images and things like that yet immediately, maybe by the time this video comes out, but I'll kind of fill it in over the next couple of days and get all of the information that people want to see posted for that. Otherwise, we're going to start the next build in the next episode, and if you want to be notified about the next episode, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel and or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.